Hey folks, I actually wasn't planning on going live with this, but I figure since it's the first night, and it's be a good time to get folks started. So this is June 7th, 2020, 7 p.m. on the Eastern Seaboard. And this is the beginning of the Sevenfold Waning moon spell, Magical Resistance. I'm going to light the candle and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it so we lose that main point here. So I know I've mentioned it on Facebook and Instagram, and I think I totally spaced in really mentioning it here on YouTube. So I apologize for folks who are just like, what is this all about? I will include the actually blog post for this. That right in there. So here, this candle has 7 symbols, technically 8 because there is a crescent moon on top. As a waning crescent. So the Sevenfold Waning moon spell is a magical resistance that is focused on diminishing, eroding, shifting, and accomplishing change from now until the new moon. And I post instructions on my blog for a variety of different ways that you can do this spell. Because it is a group working, and my recommendation is starting on 7 p.m. local time, which is right now for folks who are on the Eastern Seaboard of the United States. But any time is fine when you can do it. And here there's a couple different variations. So first I'm going to go through what the idea is. So the waning moon is a time of decrease. It is often the best time for banishing spells, for cleansing, anything to get rid of things. I'm going to move this down just a little bit. And so I know a lot of folks were really active coming into the full moon on Friday, doing a lot of different workings. There are lots of different things flying around the internet, which is awesome. And I really want to keep folks thinking about a little bit of work each day, because there's often a tendency to participate in the big thing and then just kind of forget about it, especially if racism isn't a thing that's directly affecting your life, police brutality, the ability to gather and protest, so many different things. So to help keep folks focused on Black Lives Matter and just changing the entire system. I kind of received this working from the spirits and deities that I work with and got to share it with the world. And because I'm not a huge fan of like, here's a spell, everybody do it exactly like this. It came in a whole bunch of different varieties. So the main concept is that there are these 7 symbols. Each one points to a different thing that helps accomplish a cause, and by diminishing, eroding, banishing a particular item. And as there are 28 days in a lunar month, and we are at the full moon, we just on the full moon on Friday, and in my tradition we have 3 days of the full moon. So that was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, today, Sunday. So this is to me the official start of the waning moon in there. Hi folks, hi Tony and Jamie. And so from now until the new moon is that period of 14 waning days, which is 2 periods of 7. And today's the 7th, and I recommend at 7 p.m. So there's a lot of 7. 7 is also the number of the Chariot card in the Major Arcana, which is a card of triumph, especially over adversity, to pull together opposites to create balance. Right? This is all stated in the blog post too, so you can go back and reference the link later. And so the idea is that you can most simply take a 7-day or a tall votive glass candle, like so, or Saint candle, some folks know it, and draw on there. This is what Sharpie, these 7 symbols, and do 1 symbol a night. And if you're doing it for the whole 14 days, you're going to need 2 candles, and you'll go through each one a night, focusing on what that symbol represents. If you don't have time to do a little bit each day, which I understand, people's schedules, different things going on. There's also variation where you can do 3 candles with a combined sigil that has everything together in it to one long elongated sigil. And you can do that up to 3 periods, which would be today, the 14th, and the 21st. Or if you just only have the time to do the 14th, it's like what works for you is really important. Hey, Sydney. So that's the thing. If you don't have a glass candle, you can do a tall votive candle, or you can do one of those little short stubby candles that has enough room and you can carve into there. Or if you just have tea lights, then you can draw on every single tea light one of these symbols. So the first one that we have tonight is the X. X marks the spot. It's a good spot to begin with. And this is for ending police brutality and violence. Very important. This is our first step towards police reform, particularly for folks who are protesting and being met with police in riot gear and being tear gassed for being peacefully gathered, using your First Amendment rights, and being brutalized, right? That's one thing, as well as the simple fact of Black people in America, while walking down the street, while jogging, while bird watching, while sleeping in your own home, any of these things, right? The police can come in and pretend like your life doesn't matter, which is the whole thing about Black Lives Matter, is to draw attention to that, right? On so many levels. So that is the focus for the first night. And if you work with any deities or spirits, you can also focus them, bring those in. I recommend anybody that you are going to, it's like if you're going to look up deities of justice, take the time to understand and work with them first. Don't just pull random ones out. You could work with the mighty dead. The same thing again, though. It's like you just don't want to call somebody up, that you found in a book, like, well, they sound cool. Like, take the time to understand who they were and why they would be good to call into that. Tomorrow night is the asterisk here, and this is for removal of ignorance as well as misinformation that feeds into racism. And for all of these, I think you can just simply reflect on even just one headline in the news and think about what has happened here. And so many points of misinformation when it comes to racism, to maybe even reflect on something that you grew up with, right? That you were told, maybe something having to do with affirmative action, right? Things like, it's been a long day. So, I'm sure there's something that you didn't even realize was something that is tinged in racism, but it might have been something you were taught in school or something in your family or just that was assumed, right? The next one here is the open eye. And with the open eye, this has 2 aspects to it. It is for the removal of protections against those who are committing the atrocities against people of color, particularly towards Black people. So this would be going back to especially police brutality, right? And opening up the eyes of those who have turned a blind eye to that. The next one here is attacking the bureaucracy that upholds and creates unjust laws. Then we have the redistribution of money that would have gone to support these things being redistributed to the community. Right, so helping towards education, resources, things that actually better a population and make a city a most wonderful place, rather than investing in brutality and hatred. What a concept. And then here, this is to remove the blockades towards advancement, advancement and achievement. And that has many different layers to it as well. And this last one here is destroy white supremacy. So each of those you can focus on each night, burn your candle through just enough. Or as I said, if you don't have the time to do a little bit each day, or maybe you can do a couple a day at a time, right? You can do two, down to one. It's up to you. There really isn't a wrong way to go about this work. What is most important is that you are focusing on the intent and the will, engaging with these ideas, and keep it coming, because magical resistance, I said it in the video the other day, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not just one working that's going to fix everything. Magic is a tool towards breaking down these barriers and building people up again. But it has to be partnered with action in the mundane world as well, which is, again, I mentioned about being registered to vote, encouraging other people to vote, to contact the local legislator, to get involved in your local government, right? To get on the city boards and such, to be there at every election, because if you're just thinking about the big primaries and you're thinking about the president election, what gets up to the president? There's everybody in between that. So when you're voting in your local elections, that is your local judges, that's your local chiefs, that's all these different people that are influencing, how much funding the police get, right? How are they destroying homeless camps? I'm looking at you, Seattle. And Portland and a few other areas, right? Like, where's this money going? Wow, so much into riot gear and tanks and tear gas, but not supporting the homeless people, right? The houseless community that has been created because of other poor choices in local government, right? Not collecting the tax on Amazon, the head tax. I know I live in New England now, but it still pisses me off what happened in Seattle. And to see last night, the coverage was also extremely upsetting. So there's a lot of work to do. And this is a good way to start developing those muscles to do it every day. Now, as I said, this is for the waning moon. And this month it's been set up very nice with the numerology of it, that today's the 7th, 14th, 21st. You can also do this every waning moon. So we'll be moving through that. And then there's what is it that you want to focus? So I would suggest, I'm not going to come up with, at least I'm saying this now, I don't plan on coming up with a waxing moon spell on the other side of this. Who knows? But what I'd rather see is that you choose every month or part of the lunar cycle, maybe 2 things per waxing cycle of issues that you want to lend your energy to. So this waning moon is about the decrease and the vanishing. So we're taking away those blockades, those barriers, removing those actions, taking the power away from them so that it is redistributed as we move into the new moon, right, into the waxing moon. But at the other side of the waxing, that's a great time for building. It's a great time for support. So what can you do to, at that time, amplify Black voices, to support those voices in your local community who are working for change? What are those things that you could be lending that energy to? So that's a way to look at it. I don't want people to just kind of do cookie cutter spells, and that's why this is something, again, that's very much personal. I know folks have asked, can you decorate the candles? Can you add herbs? You can do whatever you want. You can make this into a full-on ritual. You can work with this, a different mighty dead every evenings, every aspect of it, or a different deity, and just do a whole thing. Or if it's simply a matter that you sit down for a few minutes and focus on that first part of the symbol, connect with it, and just think about the change and visualize the change of what can happen in the world, because magic starts with thought. So for those of you might have, I know some of you might have caught it, but earlier from 4 to 5 today, or about an hour or so, I had talked on Facebook on my author page too about magical resistance. So I know the other day was just a short little video here on YouTube, but you can also check out the one on Facebook. I'll try to throw that link in here as well when I get a moment, which really goes into more of the nuts and bolts of magical resistance, a little bit of the history of it, and I talk more about this spell. But it's more important that you focus on the elements of it, the drawing of it, what each of these things represent, versus like, do you have the right color candle? Do you need to have extra stuff? You know, it's the action, it's the intent more than the aesthetic of it, right? And the symbols have power because they are simply the touchstones, right? That, you know, what do you see? So working in sigils here, right? This is the basis of that sigil. An X, as I started off saying, X marks the spot, right? But it's also what is prohibited, or no, what is not allowed. And that is why that's that first one. We also think about sometimes bruises, right? And also the plus sign on its side becomes a health, right? The X on there becomes plus sign. The asterisk is about additional information, right? So if we're going to talk about misinformation, we're going to talk about what is also the correct information. So that open eye, right? So the evil eye is, it's at one point a sign of protection. I actually have taken off, I'm like, I don't have an angel right now. I was just getting ready to just do the candle here. But the evil eye, it's seen as a symbol against its own self, right? The little evil eye bracelets and such. But the evil eye itself, right, is that look that's there that takes away vitality. So sort of shifting and changing that. So this with the wavy lines here for clearing out the bureaucracy, right? It's almost like it's a little river. It's a shift. It's creating a path or even a little bridge over those unjust laws. The broken diamond here with the dots. So when I do sigils and I think about financial matters, I often use a diamond instead of a dollar sign or something like that. It's just a personal choice. So in breaking the symbol of that diamond, it's sort of taken away the power from that money that keeps getting, you know. Did you know for most cities, the most amount of their budget goes to the police department? So if funds were redistributed to, let's say, the library, the arts, community businesses, infrastructure, you know, sorts of things like that, it can make a really big change. So that's what about those dots represent the resources and the redistribution of that. It also is a bit of an eye as well. To the star here, right, for advancement, right? Think about the ways that, especially for Black people, that opportunities are taken away just by the color of their skin, to remove that. And then there's the key of success. It's also the 5 elements combined. The star is also hope, excuse me, oh gosh, language, is hope in the major arcana, right? The star, number 17. And then our downward arrow, of course, when you have that downward motion, it is also a flip of a rune that has been appropriated by some white supremacist racist assholes. So we're flipping that over and kind of reclaiming that power to put that down into the earth. So that is what all of these things individually are. And then you can find on the blog post the sigil, which is combining most of these into one. So there's that. Let's see, was there any little notes? Yeah. So, hey, folks. I'm glad to see that New York was peaceful. I know Philadelphia was peaceful. Providence was also had a very peaceful the other night. Was that Friday? Oh my God, like, what is time? we're still in this what is time. We're in the middle of this pandemic still. So I know that some cities have gone exceptionally well, and other cities have had good days and bad days. So, and there's still more to come. So that's part of what this is for. And I've been talking for 20 minutes. So I'm gonna let you guys kind of check out the link. If you have questions about the spell or different aspects of it, you can leave a comment on the blog. That would be ideal, because I guarantee you that if you have a question about some part, somebody else might also have it. Oh, one thing that I didn't mention in the blog that I mentioned in the last little thing was about if you're only going to do, a little bit each night. Some people say, well, how do I blow the candle out? Do I snuff the candle out? Especially if you're working with one of these 12 things, there's a point where snuffing the candle out is not going to be so awesome. I personally blow candles out, which I know is like, oh, some taboo and some new age stuff, but I am blowing my breath into it. Right? That is my intent, is a combination of the elements, and I feel like I'm respecting the flame rather than smothering it. But that's my personal perspective on it. And again, this is the wonderful thing, is that there are many different kinds of witches out there. You're all coming from different places, so do what you feel called to, adjust as you feel necessary. That is going to be more powerful than following things to the letter. So if you just, you want to close it and you have like a little pentacle that you put on top to seal the candle off, you can do that. If you can do your finger squish, you can do that too. Though, of course, you're not going to be able to do that for too long. But if you are working with a little tiny taper or a tea light, just practice good fire safety as well. So, yeah, well, we shall see about Paganicon. I love Paganicon. I don't know if, yeah, it's very, everything is up in the air. So I know that everything else I have scheduled all the way until the end of August is not happening, and that goes right into where we're starting off. So, and that's kind of another thing why, we're each in our own places doing this. It's sort of a group working, even though, I'm not saying let's be all strict about what time and exactly how to do it, because I think collectively it's like waves, right? So you just keep adding to the energy of that wave in different points. But often folks just like a specific time to start, like, when do I need to do it? I know folks who started doing it at 7 o'clock this morning. Bless your hearts. And I mean that in the kindest, most wonderful way. I'm like, you got up that early to do this. That's amazing. Because you wanted to burn the whole entire candle and make sure you're awake for all of that, which is wonderful. So, but you get to choose what time. Oh, another thing about, I think I mentioned this in the blog, is about 7 is, it's been a lot of discussion about that we're in the Tower times, right? 16 in the major arcana. And about the bringing down tower, so 16, 1 plus 6 is 7 as well. So we're at that kind of crucial point where we're seeing all of the bricks fall, right? Brick by brick by brick, everything is breaking down. And the wonderful thing, though, I know it's very distressing. Change is never easy. It's also like cataclysmic, right? But as I said, star, right? That is the next card. It's number 17. The star is hope. That is progress. It's so much more for tomorrow. So if as a society together that we can work for change and we can craft our society. And I know, oh God, the rising generations, like so many of the most successful protests that I've seen on the news, I know Providence was organized by teenagers and Nashville was, and I think San Francisco as well. So like teenagers are at the forefront, and particularly young Black women are at the forefront of a lot of this. And that is amazing. And I think that says so much about the rising generations of folks to come. Like, that is wonderful, because this world is getting more diverse. It's getting queerer. It's getting browner. It's getting more magical. It's getting more socially aware. And more active and caring. So as long as we can continue to clear the way for the younger generation, the world's going to be pretty awesome. So folks who are in their 30s, in your 40s, 50s and upward, I know our job is hold it back, clear the way, because they're coming and they're going to make some amazing changes. But we have to build the foundation for that. So it's clearing some stuff out. Okay, that wasn't going to meander anymore. But thank you all for tuning in, the perpetrator, watching what's going on, and we'll see what comes this week. So, yep, it is an interesting new world. I won't say Brave New World because I hated that book, but that's a discussion for a different time. All right, good night. So go forth, work some magic, witches.